Computer. Recording in progress. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Jill, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. For anybody who's just signing in, my guest today is Jill Heinerth, a worldwide explorer. And I'd love to tell you that she's a worldwide explorer above the ground, but she's probably seen more beneath the ground than anybody around. Jill is a cave diver, and I became interested in what Jill does because of my brother, who is a wreck diver. And the more I started to learn about what Jill does, the more enthralled I became. So she is the explorer in residence from the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. She's written 2 books, one for kids and one for adults, as you can see. Into the Planet is the one that I bought my brother for Christmas, and he loves it. And it's a great book. Everybody should read it. You have an Instagram post, multiple Instagram posts that I am fascinated with, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about those.
Sure.
But a lot of your work, you do work in film, and I'm going to talk about James Cameron, but a lot of your work is really about the environment and preservation and exploration. So let's start with the Sahara sand. So that blew my mind. So if you can follow Jill on Instagram, and one of her great posts is about finding Sahara sand, soil sand, and you were in the tropics diving in a cave, right?
In the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Okay, not where you'd expect to find Sahara sand.
Right. So
why were you there? And how did you know it was Sahara soil? And what made you go, that's weird?
Well, I was on a project with National Geographic, cave exploration outreach educational project. And in the Bahamas, we find this very crimson red, very, very fine sediment in these caves that are otherwise like swimming through a crystal chandelier. They're white and blue and beautiful speleothems hanging from the ceilings like stalactites, stalagmites. But inside some of those speleothems is this crimson red bright dust. And I've learned that this is from the Sahara Desert, even though the cave is in the Bahamas. So during very dry times on planet Earth, dust from the Sahara Desert will blow up into the atmosphere, come across the Atlantic Ocean, and then rain down onto the surface of the Bahamian Islands like Abaco. Now, when the sea levels are lower, that's when the beautiful decorations in these caves are formed. The water table's lower, and things that are on the surface of the earth are carried by that rain, like slowly in between the grains of sand and soil, to reach a point where they're literally dripping from the ceiling to the floor in a dry cave. And those sediments pile up over time. Now, when ocean levels are higher and the water table's higher, then these are places that I can swim through. So today, the ocean levels are significantly higher than they have been in Earth's past. But we still continue to have Sahara dust storms. Like last July 2020, there was a big Sahara dust storm. And so we still get this bright red material raining down on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. And, what I take away from this kind of work is, not just the information about paleoclimatology that interests the scientists that I work with, but it's really a sense of connection. I don't think that anybody that's been, alive during this COVID era could ever deny that, some small thing on some other part of the planet is not connected to us. And, dust from the Sahara Desert can be underground in a cave in the Bahamas, just as a virus can travel all around the planet and infect a global population. Like everything is connected.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so you were there for National Geographic working on that, and you came across that. What project were you working on for National Geographic when you were in that cave finding Sahara sand?
Well, I've done a lot of work in the Bahamas with National Geographic. So I think that particular project was an exploration, outreach, and educational initiative. So we were both studying the the sand and formations within the cave to bring them out for scientists from the University of Miami who were dating the cave and learning about the age and the different dry epochs. But we were also working with school kids there. So we brought in hundreds of school kids to learn about the Blue Hole cave environment. So obviously they can't go cave diving, but we taught them about the formations, about archaeology, about bush medicine, about the natural biology around the cave blue holes, and had a really great experience with the kids.
That is neat. Now I know you do a lot with kids, aside from your book, The Aquanaut, which is awesome. But with COVID, you've spent the bulk of the year teaching children via certainly this medium, but you were teaching children about exploration in caves before COVID. You just kind of adapted to the process.
Yeah, when I was first asked to serve as the Royal Canadian Geographical Society Explorer in Residence, they asked me what I would like to do with that platform. And I told them quite simply that I wanted to be the woman that I wished I had met when I was 10 years old. So I wanted to be able to talk to kids about the exploration mindset and discovery, not just specifically what I'm doing, but what they're capable of doing if they employ their explorer's mindset. And so I visited every province and territory, very remote communities all across Canada to work with kids directly before COVID hit. But then when COVID hit, I thought, okay, all my work has evaporated. All my projects are canceled. So I built a little broadcast studio here in my house, and I was able to reach out to kids virtually. So in 2020, I did 242 presentations to kids in classrooms.
Wow, good for you. That's excellent. Well, I kind of get that. When I was 10, there was no female fire chiefs. I mean, there's not too many now. So it's nice that you can do that. All right, so let's circle back. So when you were doing the exploration, the caves, you did that for National Geographic, and of course they film all that, but you do other work in film too, right? With movies and things like that, diving into, actually, you know what, before we talk about that, maybe we should give the people who are watching this an understanding of cave diving. So I wouldn't want somebody to think, oh, I just got my scuba license, let's go through this cave. There's way more to it than that. So could you, and I get this from my brother, because my brother wreck dives, but can you give the people who are going to watch this a bit of an overview on what it takes to cave dive, especially to do it safely?
Yeah, cave diving is quite a long extension beyond what we would call traditional open circuit scuba diving, where you wear a single tank on your back, take a breath, exhale, make bubbles. What I'm using for life support is more akin to what an astronaut wears for a spacewalk. So there are times when I've carried literally like 200 or 300 kilograms of gear and swam that into a cave system for research and exploration. And this specialized life support equipment that I wear recirculates the breathing gases, allows me to mix exotic gases for deep dives. So it's quite complex. It requires a lot of training, a dedication to safety protocols, to currency, to staying fit. And then even once you're inside the cave environment, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. We're swimming into an overhead environment. So a tunnel filled with water where there may be only one natural entrance, and I may be swimming kilometers into the branching conduits of a cave system. So you can lose your visibility from the silt. You could get lost in the maze of corridors. There can be situations where a diver gets trapped. If your life support system fails, you have to be able to deal with it in place to get home safely. Just, like when you go into a burning building, if something goes wrong with your life support equipment, you got to solve it there and get yourself out safely. Now, the one little difference is that when I'm inside a cave, there's literally nobody to call for help. So I have to be capable of self-rescue and capable and willing to execute a buddy rescue as well.
Wow, that's a lot of training. So I appreciate the parallel. So I worked in fire. It's a self-contained breathing apparatus.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. Now I'll go in a burning building no problem. I am not going in one of those caves. You talk about self-rescue. The self-rescue we're taught is how to breach the walls and get out the other side. That is not going to happen in the environment you work in. No. And of course, my tank, we carry 100 pounds or more of gear walking into the building and the hose. So I get that part. But the life device you work, how many hours is on that? Because it's not like my 45-minute tank that's good for 30 minutes.
Yeah, it depends on the equipment. It could be anywhere from 4 to 6 hours time at any depth underwater. I mean, my longest mission was 22 hours. So it's quite a lot you can do with a rebreather.
Wow, 22 hours underwater?
Yeah, so
in one run.
Yeah, the 22 hours was divided into like 5 hours of active swimming through the conduits of the cave, and they're 300 feet deep, and then 17 hours of decompression in order to slowly return to the surface.
Right.
So partway through that decompression, about 12 hours into the mission, I was able to get into a pressurized habitat to finish the job. Yeah.
And where were you diving then that you did that?
That was on a project in North Florida at a place called Wakulla Springs. I was working with the United States Deep Caving Team, and we were making the first ever 3-dimensional map of any subterranean space, dry or wet. So it was very groundbreaking. This was back in the late 90s. I mean, the technology that we developed in that project is still groundbreaking, and it has progressed since that time. The mapping device that I was piloting for that project is now a fully autonomous, artificially intelligent robot mapper that's capable of going to Jupiter's moon Europa to explore the liquid ocean beneath the frozen surface.
That is very cool. I get why you'd want to meet yourself at 10. I think you're like the coolest person I've spoken to in like ages. All right, so that's cool. So you do, and that gets filmed. So the other thing that I find absolutely fascinating is because I know you've worked on film, and James Cameron, there's a quote from James Cameron that says, "More people have set foot on the moon than have been to the places you've gone diving." So tell me about working in film and doing that kind of stuff, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, a lot of what I do is underwater photography, underwater filmmaking. So sometimes that's for research and science and documentation, and at other times it's for television or Hollywood movies. So the time I worked with James Cameron was, he was developing the 3D technology for the upcoming Avatar films. And we were shooting a pitch trailer for a film inside a cave using that 3D technology. And I had the opportunity to take him on his very first cave dives. And that was quite a privilege. Yeah.
So what, can you tell me any of the other TV or movies that you've worked on?
Oh gosh, yeah. So there was a Hollywood film called The Cave, which was a monster movie. I mean, that one was a huge job for me. That took 8 months of my life working on that one, on everything from developing the technology for the film to being a stunt diver and underwater unit director. So that was quite fun. But yeah, all kinds of TV, from History Channel, Discovery, and National Geographic, Smithsonian, all kinds of programs.
That's amazing. So I want to go like two ways here. So I definitely want to understand how you develop some of this technology, because you're right, this stuff is groundbreaking. And so, how did you develop that? And then I want to circle back to some of your stuff on the environmental stuff. So how does one, I mean, you're a university grad in fine arts. That doesn't really say, hey, I'm going to develop an autonomous, underwater mapping. Like how do you do one to the other?
Well, I think my degree in fine arts was more a reflection of the fact that I was like inherently curious about so many different things. I wanted to be involved in science. I wanted to be involved in environmentalism. And what does one take at university if you don't want to be a specialist? I wanted to be involved in a lot of different things. So now that I reflect back on it, fine arts was a terrific decision for me, because most of the things that I've done, like there's no handbook for the first person to do something.
Right. Yeah, I know.
You're on your own. You're self-taught. Today we're globally interconnected on the internet, and so I've had an incredible opportunity to collaborate with all kinds of scientists and engineers, and frequently I am the hands and eyes of people that can't reach the places that I can get to. Because I specialize in the
right.
life support technology and the comfort of carrying a camera and documenting these things. Wow. So these things are only possible through those sorts of collaborations and partnerships.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm gonna, when we're done, I'm gonna sit here and go, oh my gosh, well, I knew you'd be interesting, but this is amazing. All right, so COVID has grounded everybody. Yeah. I know my brother's, all of his dives are on hold. But when COVID is done and the end is near, like it's on the horizon, what's your next project? Where are you going next? Where are you exploring next?
Mm-hmm. Well, I never really stopped, although all of my formal projects, right, and TV programs and everything got canceled. I'm very fortunate to live where I do, because I still have access to the water. So I only stopped during the strict lockdowns when we were all supposed to be staying home and not doing anything to stress the medical system. Right. But about an hour and a half from me is Canada's longest underwater cave, and I've been doing a lot of research and partnering with a new colleague of mine from the Canadian Museum of Nature. We're doing a lot of work on the endangered species that I'm finding inside this cave that are important to the health and welfare of the Ottawa River watershed and beyond, down to the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence. Yeah.
Did I misread a post, an Instagram post about you were diving and you were talking about you have to make sure where you're diving and what's above your head? Was that in the St. Lawrence, or was that in the near there? Maybe I misread it.
Well, whenever I'm cave diving and I'm in an overhead environment, we do, have to be careful. Oh, I know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about, if you dive in the middle of the St. Lawrence River, you might as well, you might as well be in an overhead environment, because you cannot surface under a freighter. Obviously, that wouldn't go very well. You can hear them sort of booming over top of you sometimes when you're diving in the St. Lawrence. So yeah, we have to treat that kind of diving with extra caution, and people really need the skills of an overhead environment diver.
Okay. All right. So you've got the two books, and I've read Into the Planet. I have not read The Aquanaut, but I have a new grandson. He was born in March.
Oh.
So he might be a little young yet, but I think he needs that.
Yeah.
I think you've inspired me. Maybe my granny is a fire chief. Maybe we need that book too.
Absolutely.
My granny is a fire chief.
That would be great.
But the Into the Planet is a great book. My brother loved it. I loved it. And I'll see if I can put some pictures on the word portion of the blog. Mm-hmm. I guess I have, so because I write about retirement, and the fire service retires at a certain age. Mm-hmm. And, we had a quick conversation. Jacques Cousteau was never forced to retire. But, right. And you don't have to retire. But do you have a retirement plan? Do you think about what I'll do when, or does you're younger than I am, so you've got time, but does retirement even cross your mind? You don't have to, but
yeah, this is a completely unconventional life that I've created. I'm self-employed. I never quite know where the next paycheck's coming from, but it always works out. My career is a hybrid of diving, photography, filmmaking, writing, speaking, corporate speaking, consulting, all kinds of things like that. Everything that serves to keep me underwater and diving actively. I don't ever foresee an end to my diving. That's really the element that makes me feel whole. But, will I slow down some? Sure. But as that inherently curious person, we keep ourselves busy, as you do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. All right. Anything you want to say? Any last pearls of wisdom? Any last pearls of wisdom for the environment? Pearls of wisdom for taking up diving? Pearls of wisdom from Jill Heinerth. What do you got?
Well, I would say just to remind people that no matter where you live, the ocean begins beneath your feet. So I am actually swimming through the veins of Mother Earth. And I see everything that has been applied to the surface of the earth. It soaks into the ground and it ends up in our drinking water. And that water that comes out of a cave may feed a creek that goes to a larger river that heads out to the Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence watershed, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the Atlantic Ocean, and beyond. Like, all of our water on this planet is connected. And so, anything that we do on the surface will be returned to us to drink. So just, I think my big message, especially in this COVID year, is interconnectivity. Even if we don't have the answers to the really big problems that we're facing on this planet right now, global climate change, water quality issues, we all know in our hearts small things that we can do that leave a positive impact. And if we can all just start doing those little things, saving water, thinking about what we're putting on the ground, then that's one step towards solving the much bigger problems ahead.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. That was a great words to work by. Thank you.